Hey everybody, we're here at the band show talking to my friend, Lauren Tarshis. Did I say that right?
You did, Van. Beautiful
Yes.
job.
I did it. Hooray for me. Interview over. Just kidding. Lauren, we want to know about you. That's why you're here. So the first thing I want to ask you is where you're from.
I am from Connecticut.
Connecticut. So you are a professional writer.
I am.
And how early on did you start writing?
Well, I should say that I never imagined when I was the age of my readers that I would ever grow up to be an author, because I actually really struggled to read. I did not successfully finish reading a book until I was 14 years old.
Wow.
So I had reading struggles, so it is still shocking. Like, it is not, the shocking part is not that I'm talking to Van the puppet. The shocking part is that I've written any books at all, and that I'm here at this amazing festival to talk about this. So it wasn't until I was in college then when I really started to understand how I needed to read, which was just super carefully rereading paragraphs I didn't understand, taking notes, which I still have to do. I haven't been cured of my reading problems. I just learned that I have a different way of learning than other people might. So it wasn't until much later that I even thought to myself, wow, maybe I could try to learn to write a novel for kids. And I started learning to do that when I was about 30, and it took 12 years before my first book came out. So it was a long, long process of learning and failing and trying and failing and trying and crying and eating lots of ice cream and potato chips and then writing my book.
Awesome. And that's like the saying, fail is first attempt in learning, right?
I've never heard it put that way, but
Oh, no?
I think that's a brilliant statement.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I wrote it.
Very good. You are truly a guru, I can tell.
You're the second person to call me that today.
Really?
I'm a sage.
A sage.
Yes. Now, Lauren, you were saying you had trouble reading and that you would read very carefully. You found that would really help. Did that then become like a superpower for you? Because you're also an editor.
Well, I think sometimes I think it's ridiculous that a person, well, I used to think that it was just absurd that a person who struggled to read would grow up to become an editor and a writer. But I do think that because I struggled and because it wasn't just easy for me to instantly read something and understand it, that it has made me a better editor. And I think that a lot of the writers I work with appreciate that I can say to them about a sentence or a paragraph, this concept is going to be a little confusing. I think we have to make this a little more vivid. I think would you be able to break this down so that your readers can really grasp it? So I do think that maybe it has become, I don't know if I'd say a superpower, but I certainly think that my own struggles have a lot to do. It's that voice of mine when I was 8 or 9 or 10 that I hear when I am often either writing my own work or editing the work of amazing writers that I get to work with. I don't think people should know what their superpower is when they're 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 or 20 or even 30. That life, what's so great is that you are constantly discovering things that you love. And then it's really not that you have a gift like, oh my goodness, I just suddenly discovered and I'm amazing at the xylophone. I have this talent I never knew. It's that you might decide, wow, I love the xylophone. Now I'm going to really try to learn to play the xylophone, and I'm going to be really bad at first. So it's the gift or the exciting moment, I think, in life is discovering something you really love doing and deciding you want to work at it and eventually be able to talk to a handsome puppet.
Oh, I'm blushing. You can't really tell, but I am. Now, I want to know about the series. Now, this is a series that you've been writing for a while called I Survived. Is that correct?
That's right.
And this is about different historical disasters.
Yes.
And people that have survived them.
Yes. So each I Survived book is about a different event in history, and I like to say that what all the events have in common, because it could be anything from a shipwreck to a tsunami to a fire, in the city of Chicago, but what all of the events have in common over the 17 books, and this is a question that readers can ask themselves before they start reading an individual book, is how did this event change our world or change our ideas or change the way we think about something? So all of the events, even if it's something like the shark attacks of 1916, which just seems like a really scary, oh my gosh, shark attack story, that actually really changed the way people thought about sharks and our relationships with nature. So that's what they all have in common in their historical fiction. So I do tons and tons of research, read dozens of books and travel to the places I'm writing about and go, study videos and talk to experts and meet people who've been through the events if it's a modern event. And then I make up characters that are from my imagination, but all of their experiences are inspired by the experiences of the real people that I read about through my research.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's incredible.
Well, it has really been an incredible adventure, and the best thing about it is that it's connected me to so many amazing teachers and readers and librarians.
Well, it's because they're so compelling. These stories are great. Now, we've got some questions for the kids, from the kids. Would you like to hear?
I would love to hear them.
Here we go.
How did you get interested in writing about the things you put through that survived books?
I think there's a few different things that made me interested, but the story that I think will connect the most with you all relates to one of my sons. I have 4 children, and my third son, Dylan, he didn't have my reading struggles, but he just didn't like to read. And one day I asked him when he was maybe 10 years old, I said, well, what kind of books do you really want to read? I mean, what are you looking for? Because I would bring home sports books and nonfiction books and fantasy books, and he just wasn't interested. And he said, I want to read books about really cool topics, about maybe it's a disaster or the Titanic, and then I want it not to just be facts. I want there to be a story with suspense, and then I want the character to be a kid like me. And that's really all the ingredients in the I Survived series. So I think that was the inspiration.
Miss Tarsh, say you put somebody in an I Survived book, which one would it be?
Ooh, so are you saying if I could send you into any I Survived book, what would it be? Oh no, well, I'd have to go with you, first of all, to make sure you came out the other side. We'd have to go together. I would say the one that I think would be the most fascinating would be to go all the way back to the year AD 79, to the destruction of Pompeii, to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, because there are no photographs of that time in history. We really, we know so little about it. So I think it'd be very cool. We could go together and then we'd come back and we'd be able to tell everyone about all these mysterious things that we discovered.
Yeah.
So I think that would be cool to time travel really far back.
Of any age, what books helped I survive?
I love, because I think you asked an amazing question in the panel. Is that true? You are asking very intriguing questions, and I love this, and no one's ever asked me that. And there is a really good answer that I've never shared. I read a book called The Children's Blizzard by David Laskin that was published many years ago. And it was about the children's blizzard, but what was so amazing was how he turned a historical event into a completely thrilling story. And it was a nonfiction book, but he brought it to life. And that was sort of, in a way, one of the inspirations, because I thought, wow, I don't know if there are nonfiction books for kids and some really wonderful authors writing nonfiction, but in my experience, it was mostly for older readers maybe in middle school or high school. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to do this kind of work for younger kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, or maybe kids who don't love to read who are older. So I think that was that really got me excited about the idea of maybe taking on this kind of writing. Great question.
Yeah.
All the
And a
questions
fan
have
show
been
exclusive.
fantastic.
I was wondering where you get the idea for the settings and the extra things that you add to the story.
That's a great question. So I think that when I'm writing the I Survived books, I'm really thinking about 2 stories that are kind of mushed or woven together. I won't say mashed. They're, of course, carefully woven together. One is the event, the blizzard. I know exactly when it's coming because there's all sorts of historical record. I know the time it struck. I know, there's all sorts of nonfiction information that I can access to create the timeline of that event. But the far more challenging part is to create the fictional part, the experience of the character, and I think that's your question. How do I think of first of all, the character's family and what that character might be thinking about or loving or afraid of or fascinated by? Who is the family and who are the friends and what are they doing during the time before the blizzard actually hits? They're not just like, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. Be very boring, just like, 50 blank pages of standing around. So I wish I had like a really simple answer, but that's just the hardest part of the whole process. And it's a lot of what I would call trial and error, meaning trying it and failing at it. thinking that did not work, let's try again. And so it's like, sometimes I think of myself as a person who's building a Lego. There's like a million Lego pieces all around, and I'm trying to find the right ones to put them together in a way that feels right. But if you can think, if anyone has any new ideas for how I can make my process more organized, I'm wide open, because it's not a good one.
There you go. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.